Let me ask you something. What if I told you that one of the most dangerous things about nuclear power is how we talk about nuclear power? Not the reactors, not the waste, the words. Because here's the thing, every year thousands of people die from energy production. Coal, gas, oil, and almost nobody talks about it. But the moment something goes wrong at a nuclear plant, it's on every front page in the world. So today, we're doing something simple. We're going to count the bodies, all of them, from every source of energy. And we're going to use the same standard for each one. No politics, no agenda, just numbers. Researchers measure this in deaths per terawatt hour, basically how many people die to produce 1 trillion watt-hours of electricity. Here's what the data shows from Our World in Data, sourced from peer-reviewed studies. Coal, 24.6 deaths per terawatt hour. Oil, 18.4. Gas, 2.8. Hydro, 1.3. Wind, 0.035. Nuclear, 0.03. Solar, 0.019. Read that again. Nuclear is at 0.03, that's below wind. That's roughly 800 times safer than coal per unit of energy produced. Now, before we go further, I need to tell you something about Chernobyl and Fukushima, because these are the two events that live in everyone's mind when they hear nuclear disaster, and both of them are wildly misunderstood. April 26, 1986. Reactor 4 at Chernobyl explodes. The biggest nuclear accident in civilian history. Here's what the United Nations Scientific Committee on the Effects of Atomic Radiation, UNSCEAR, concluded after 20 years of study. 2 workers died in the immediate explosion. 28 more died from acute radiation syndrome in the weeks that followed. Those 30 deaths are confirmed, attributable directly to radiation. No dispute. Then there's thyroid cancer. Because of the radioactive iodine released, children and adolescents across Belarus, Ukraine, and Russia were exposed, many through contaminated milk. By 2005, over 6,000 thyroid cancer cases had been recorded in people who were children at the time of the accident. Of those 6,000 plus cases, 15 had proved fatal by 2005. Thyroid cancer, when caught, is highly treatable, and the screening programs that followed Chernobyl meant it was caught early and often. So what about the big number? You've probably heard estimates of tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands, of deaths. Where does that come from? Those are projections. Statistical models that say if we expose this many people to this dose of radiation, and we apply the LNT model, the linear no-threshold model, we'd expect this many extra cancers over a lifetime. UNSCEAR itself warns that these projections are highly uncertain at low doses, that they shouldn't be confused with observed deaths, and that they can be misunderstood to be of a similar nature to actual identified cases. The number the science actually supports, roughly 30 to 60 confirmed deaths directly attributable to Chernobyl radiation. The additional cancer burden from the general population remains undetectable against background cancer rates, which is itself a scientific finding, not a cover-up. The real disaster from Chernobyl: mental health, displacement of over 300,000 people, the psychological trauma of evacuation, of fear, of stigma. UNSCEAR calls this the most significant public health consequence of the accident. not the radiation. March 11, 2011. A magnitude 9 earthquake hits Japan. The tsunami that follows kills nearly 20,000 people. Then it damages Fukushima Daiichi. Reactor meltdown, evacuations, international panic. The WHO conducted a formal health risk assessment, 172 pages, published in 2013. Their conclusion, direct from the report: none of the 7 reported deaths among workers is attributable to radiation exposure. For the general public, even in the most affected areas of Fukushima Prefecture, the WHO found no increase expected in miscarriages, birth defects, or cognitive impairment. The estimated additional lifetime cancer risk for a female infant in the most affected location: around 0.5% increase above baseline. 0 confirmed radiation deaths from Fukushima. But here's what did kill people: the evacuation. Japan's own reconstruction agency recorded over 1,700 disaster-related deaths in Fukushima Prefecture. Deaths attributed mainly to the physical and mental stress of evacuation, not the earthquake or tsunami itself. A peer-reviewed cohort study of nursing home evacuees found their mortality risk nearly tripled after evacuation. People who died because they were moved, not because of radiation. The irony is brutal. The fear of nuclear killed more people than the nuclear did. So let's put this in context. Every single year, air pollution from fossil fuel combustion kills an estimated 8 million people globally. That's not a projection. That's observed, documented mortality. Respiratory disease, cardiovascular disease, strokes. Coal plants don't make headlines when a miner dies. Gas explosions don't trigger international treaty negotiations. Oil spills devastate ecosystems, and we move on. But a nuclear accident with confirmed radiation deaths in the dozens stops the entire global conversation about clean energy for a generation. We have a perception problem, not a nuclear problem. Now, I want to be honest with you about what I'm not saying. I'm not saying nuclear is risk-free. It isn't. The waste problem is real and unsolved. Construction costs are high. Accidents, even rare ones, can displace hundreds of thousands of people and cause real, lasting psychological harm. I'm also not dismissing the people who fear nuclear power. Fear of radiation is deeply human. Invisible hazards are terrifying in ways that visible ones aren't. That's not irrational. It's psychology. What I am saying is this: when we make energy policy based on the feeling of risk rather than the data of risk, people die. Not from reactors, from the alternatives we choose instead. Germany shut down its nuclear plants after Fukushima. They replaced that capacity largely with coal. Air pollution deaths went up. That's the trade-off that doesn't make the front page. How many people has nuclear energy killed? Far fewer than coal. Far fewer than gas. Far fewer than oil. And in 2 of the 3 worst nuclear accidents in history, 3 Mile Island and Fukushima, the confirmed radiation death toll is 0. Chernobyl was real. 30 confirmed deaths are real. Thyroid cancer in thousands of children is real. The displacement of communities is real. None of that should be minimized. But if we're going to have an honest conversation about the cost of energy in lives, then nuclear deserves to be in that conversation as one of the safest sources we have. The question isn't whether nuclear is dangerous. The question is, dangerous compared to what? This is Reactor Atlas, exploring nuclear energy through physics, not fear.